Haria hothe uranyamukira uri miaraho ya umuthi ni mahinda mangi mega turacemania thiini wa Mohoro Gitau tumenya ni mariko marahanika icigo ngurani cia bururi. Mwoko wakwa ni ati muthenya waku no uregariura wega. Njitagwo Njoroge wa Kimani, mwathiri na njira ciiko ni wagaki wa muthoni. Na tukiambiriria ni ati motungata ma atumia kuheo ciana hamwe na motungata mangi ma kurigita ciana thibitari-ini wa Mbagathi level 5 kaunti-ini ya Nairobi ni matanyitwo kugacira makiria thutha wa thirikari ya kaunti ya Nairobi kuruguria wodi ya keheri-ini ya gutangikira motungata maya. Gavana wa Nairobi Johnson Sakaja ni utanyitwo guthurima kuhingura kwa wodi ino miaraho ya umuthi, na ndirenda tuthie mwekwe mwe tuone ni mariko marahanika thiini wa thibitari uyu wa Mbagathi level 5.
His Excellency, this issue of people making noise, you know, in politics, and I know you are very good in politics, hakuna mtu atafanya mzuri atakushukuru. Riruta Aya, sawa. His Excellency, wewe fanya kazi yako na Mungu atakuonekea. Wacha watu wapige kelele. Juu hata kuna watu, hata nyinyi ma CHVs hapo pale mnakaa huko nyumbani, kuna mtu akutuna wivu, hata hakuna kitu umefanya atakuwekelea tu, sio? His Excellency, you are doing a great work to these Nairobians. Sisi tuko nyuma yako, na mimi sio mtu wa UDA, mimi ni mtu wa ODM, sio? Na ODM sisi kazi yetu ni to make sure that the governor, during when he was campaigning, he had his manifesto. Ndio? Sisi kazi yetu ni kusaidia yeye. Si ni hivyo? Tukisaidia governor, pia sisi tunasaidika kwa ward. Si ni hivyo? Si ni hivyo? Kwa hayo machache, mambo ya Riruta nimesoma, sijui kama mjasikia hapa. Riruta is a level 2 hospital, sindio? If it is level 4, I've already given recommendations. Na gavana ameandika. Amesikia. Aya. Kwa hayo machache, mimi nimeshukuru sana. Na members wangu wa health, nimeshukuru sana juu tumetembea pamoja, and we will make sure as a committee we don't come here to praise the governor.
Ucio ni umwe wa atongoria thiini wa bunge ya kaunti ya Nairobi makiarĩrĩria ũhoro wĩgiĩ gũthundũrwo kwa wodi njerũ thiini wa thibitari wa Mbagathi. Na rĩu ndĩrenda tũthiĩ ĩmwe kwa ĩmwe nginyagia cikaro-inĩ nene cia ministry ya hinya wa kũhũthĩka gũkũ bũrũri-inĩ, kuria thirikari ĩtanyĩtwo gũkorwo ĩgĩtarĩria nĩkĩ kĩrarĩire kĩrĩa kĩngĩ ũtukũ wa ira hĩndĩ ĩrĩa bũrũri ũrakunĩkirwo nĩ nduma rĩrĩa rita rĩa gatatũ thĩinĩ wa mĩeri ĩtatũ bũrũri gũkorwo ũkĩgĩa na wagi wa thitima guothe bũrũri-inĩ kwa ihinda rĩa gatatũ kĩrũmanĩrĩrio, kana kwa ihinda rĩa gatatũ thĩinĩ wa mĩeri ĩtatũ. Kwa ihinda rĩrĩ mwandĩki mũkaru thĩinĩ wa ministry ya hinya wa kũhũthĩka Alex Wachira Watoto niwe ũraria na andĩki a mohoro, na thutha ũcio tũrehoka nĩ tũgũthikĩrĩria Davis Chirchir nĩ minister wa hinya wa kũhũthĩka. Reke tũthikĩrĩrie.
Times on the 11th of November we had similar breakdowns, though the one of November was not as major, when we had a breakdown of some conductor at Olkaria 2 compared to the one of August when we lost the whole country. So we have been meeting yesterday. When it happened, I was flying in from Dubai, and I experienced firsthand the anger because I was at the airport when the belt stopped, and therefore we could not get our luggages. The generator did not take off immediately, and it's a challenge that as a country we are really ashamed of, and we need to address it. But we do know where the problem is, and we've met as a team today. I went to the National Control Center, and I was there with the whole team, including the chair lady, the PS, and all the senior managers, as they restored the network the whole night. And even as we speak this morning, we are finalizing the restoration. And it is something we must pay attention to as a country, so that we build the kind of country we would like investors to be proud of, the kind of country we would like all of us to be proud of, because when there is no power, it impacts on the health institution, it impacts on every walks of life, and it is not something that anybody would pride of to have this kind of downtimes. I've got a written statement which I will share with you, but allow me to basically go through it very quickly, and we can do the question and answer, because I said we know where the problem is and we are addressing those challenges. It's bound to happen again, but we will look at serious maintenance. But the gist of it is lack of investment in the network for a long time. And when I go through my statement, you'll appreciate that the fact that we've continued to connect customers on the last mile, we've continued to build industry, and we've not built the network in the last 5, 6, 7 years. And there is so much constraint in the transmission of electrons from wherever they are generated. And sometimes the network drips when it is overloaded. Yesterday was caused by an overload between Kisumu, Moroni, when there was sudden demand, and the line that between Kisumu and Moroni is dimensioned to carry 80 megawatts. When the line went down, it was carrying 120 megawatts, and suddenly there was a demand of an additional 20 megawatts on that line. For a line to be carrying 149 megawatts when it is designed for 80, it felt threatened, and it dripped and cascaded down to the rest of the country. So on the 10th December 2023, yesterday, at about 7:33 p.m. in the evening, the country experienced a partial blackout on the electric power system, with Musaga substation supplying parts of western region remaining on supply from Uganda. The system demand at the time of incident was 1,732 megawatts, with the hydros performing well, the geothermal performing well, the thermal and wind was at its optimal, and so was the Ethiopia. We have a power purchase with Ethiopia, which we've signed at 200 megawatts. It was transmitting at 194 megawatts at that time. So it was working well at that total. And we had a spinning reserve from the hydros. A spinning reserve is, if anything happens, the spinning reserve will pick up and support the network. So there was enough spinning reserve to be able to support the network. So it wasn't as such lack of adequate power in the system. What was the sequence of events? The Moroni substation is supplied via 2 transmission links, Olkaria, Kibos, Kisumu, Moroni, and the second line, which evacuates most of the hydros from this side, goes to through Juja to Lesos and Moroni. The 2 lines mainly supply electricity to western South Nyanza and South Rift region. So when Lesos is the hub, that supplies western Kenya, South Nyanza, and South Rift. At that particular time, 7:33 p.m., the Kisumu-Moroni 132 power line dripped, arising from some system constraint. Like I've mentioned, it was having to carry 149, which it could not bear because it is designed to carry 80 megawatts. The loss of the Kisumu-Moroni line led to sudden increase in power flow on the Juja-Lesos-Moroni link, leading to overload at Olkaria, transformer, Dandora, Juja, transformer links. This led to a cascade of generation drips, resulting in widespread power outages. However, parts of western region, including Bungoma, Kakamega, Busia, remain on supply from Musaga substation using the alternative source of supply that we get from Uganda. The power restoration started immediately, and by 1 in the morning, 60% of the customers had been restored. You would have noticed, if you were still awake, that at about 11 p.m. at night, specifically 11:53, we had another sudden drip that we were able to restore immediately, because when you're restoring, like I mentioned before, you need to match supply and demand. And we had a small, we're trying to do it quickly, and there was another drip at 23:53, which was contained very quickly. The Kenya electricity grid is currently operating suboptimally. I asked the engineers, what do you mean by suboptimally? With limited spinning reserves, low inertia, high production proportion of intermittent generation, low hydro generation, and insufficient voltage control. This condition makes the system vulnerable to systems disturbances. When I give you the statement, I will have talked to the proposed mitigation to remove some of those system constraints. Like one, the western part of Kenya is serviced, like we said, by Olkaria and the hydros, the 7 cascade hydros, and the transmission links are currently constrained because industry has been growing, the power users have been growing, and we have not upgraded the transmission network. And we are using an 80 megawatts dimension transmission link to transmit 140 megawatts. And you would only expect it to drip to be able to save itself. So what we are doing, members of the media and Kenyans, is we are building a line, an alternative line to support west of Kenya from Olkaria through Bomet, through Narok, Narok, Bomet, all the way to Awendo, to be able to support the transmission that goes through Lesotho, like I've mentioned, and therefore be able to remove the constraint and improve the capacity of carrying more megawatts to the western part of the country where we don't have much generation. The loan facility has been signed and we are ready to start. We're getting funding from South Korea and Africa Development Bank, and we are at the tendering stage, and we should be able to start building that network. However, construction of a network of that capacity is not a quick fix. It will take some 20 months, but we'll be working on how to mitigate the challenge of constraint on the transmission network to be able to avoid the system being overloaded. We are also constructing a new 132 to 33 kV Sondu station or line and substation to further improve the supply to South Nyanza. If we were to have enough time to talk about how we service South Nyanza from Moroni to Chemosit, Sotik, to Kigathi, Ndiwa, and then Awendo, we could actually service by building a direct link from Sondu to Ndiwa and be able to avoid overloading the line going through Sotik to Ndiwa and causing those kind of challenges. We are also increasing the 220, 132 kV transformer capacity at Lesos to evacuate additional power to that from Olkaria to western part of the country and the North Rift region. We are also fast-tracking the completion of Kimuka. Kimuka is a station out of Kikuyu, somewhere here. Mala substation, which is being done by Ketraco to deload the Dandora, the Nairobi North, what we refer to as Nairobi North line. So these are all constraints where the lines are overloaded. They are not able to carry the load which is demanded by the customers at the extreme end. We also have declining spinning reserves because of lack of generation for a while. You know, we had a moratorium which was placed by government, and when we removed that moratorium, Parliament placed another moratorium. So we've not been able to work on new PPAs to be able to give us enough power. So we currently have a diminishing spinning reserve in line with the increasing base load. We need more spinning reserve. And to that end, KenGen is currently replacing the existing hydro turbines, runners with modern ones that will have capability of bigger operating range. This will address the need of spinning reserves in the short term. We also have lack of plant to provide auxiliary services inertia for resilience, or resilience for that matter. Implementation of high ground faults project in eastern and as well as other potential hydro projects in North Rift, South Nyanza, and West region to support frequency regulation and base load. We also need to fast track the implementation of battery energy storage system that will help to address the intermittence of the variable energy and provide voltage stability. What are we saying briefly? That might sound, you know, and the engineers right there. We did say we have two major challenges. We have challenge of generation. For a while, we did not have enough rains, and we were very down on the hydrology in Masinga. In fact, we have not started generating out of Masinga to date, in spite of the heavy rains. We are generating only out of Kamburu, Gitau, Kindaruma, and Kiambere. For good reasons why we have not started pushing Masinga, because of the challenge of maybe flooding in Garissa. But for a long time, we have not generated out of Masinga because there was not enough water. It was down completely. But having had the rains, and when we can generate now out of Masinga, the transmission constraint is a challenge. Like if we need, for example, 200 megawatts in the western part of the country, the transmission links can only say carry 100 megawatts, to put it in simplistic term. And therefore, when the system tries to draw more power to support the 200 megawatts, the line gives way because it cannot carry that capacity. And that is why we are building alternative routes through Narok. Why Narok Sotik? We build Olkaria Narok. That one has been built already, 132 kV line. We have built Chemosit all the way to Bomet, and the link between Narok and Bomet, which will then complete the link all the way down to Awendo, will give us that relief so that we do not have these challenges of the network dropping every so often. So we know the problem. The problem is lack of investment in the transmission network. And you do know that today the transmission network, in spite of the unbundling of the energy sector into generation, which is done by KenGen and the IPPs, the transmission network done by Ketraco and Kenya Power doing the distribution, the off-taking. The challenge with Ketraco is that it is fully funded by government. And at times like now, when government is a bit constrained, and for a while, in the last several years, we have not invested as much in the transmission network. We are now bringing in the PPP, private-public partnership, to build some of the networks. We are giving out Gilgil, Thika, Mala to Konza, or is that Isinya? We are giving out a number of networks to be built by private capital. What does that mean? It relieves Ketraco from looking for funding from government and having the kind of challenges that we've had. So Bomet, Narok should have been built a while ago. In fact, it was a project that should have been built between 2016 and 2021, but with funding from the French Development Bank, but that did not materialize because of the challenges of funding. And so we are on it. That's why I said we know the problem, we're trying to address it. This time round, we hope we'll get it right and be able to sort out the Western Kenya voltage and frequency challenges which keep dripping the network. So that was the problem yesterday. We are working on mitigation measures to see, even as we take the long haul building of the networks, because, you know, building a line of about 90 kilometers will not be done in 2 days. We will work with the engineers to see the mitigation interventions that will relieve the overvoltage or the capacity of the lines so that we are able to have alternative routes to be able to support the network. Like I've said, we are doing a new bay in Lesos with a third transformer to be able to relieve one of the links. We are going to see whether we can do a 33 kV line between Narok and Bomet, so that as we build the long-haul line, which will take about 20 months, we are able to reduce the constraint on the transmission network and be able to remove the challenge of constant power outages. The other one, which really is regarding generation and more importantly, the transmission links for Western Kenya, one of the mitigations or intervention that will be going back with the engineers to sit on and give some straight answers as we look at you in the eye is load shedding. What would need to be done, instead of overloading a line and causing the whole country to trip, we would be able to remove some feeders and therefore lessen the power demand that flows through a line, and therefore be able to only carry the amount of power which the line can carry. So instead of pushing the lines to an overload, we will basically give the line the load that it can carry, and therefore have some kind of schedule load shedding so that
Ocio ni Minister wa hinya wa kuhuthika Davis Chirchir agitariria niki kirarire kiria kingi muthenya wa ira hindi ria bururi uratobokire ndumaine icigo nyingi cia bururi thutha wa thitima gukorwo cikiura, na agitariria ati ni mitambo ya Kenya Power irakorirwo igigikuwa thitima nyingi kuri uria kwagiriire undu uratumire mitambo ino igikorwo ikigwa, na akiuga ni meguthie na mbere na kuigithia makiria niguo gutigirira ni mahuthahuthia murigo wa gukuwa thitima thiine wa waya imwe kana mitambo imwe niguo gutigirira ati maundu maya matinahanika ringi hindi ria thitima cia kundera kana ciongerereka muno igakorwo igicungirira nduma kugea kuothe bururi-ini. Riri rirari rita ria gatatu gukorwo bururi ukiurwo ni thitima. Rita ria mbere kwari mweri-ini wa kanana, mweri wa kenda ndeto ino igicokera ringi, na riu muthenya wa ira ni undu ukumithitio na njira nene ni ya Kenya kuria nenda-ini, riu magikirira nganja utongoria wa kambuni ya Kenya Power uria ucungiriire maundu maya ko makihanika, kuona hau kabere ndeto ino ndirakoretwo ikihanika kwa wingi tou. Ni ndeto irakorirwo igigumira nginya kiharo kia ndege kia Jomo Kenyatta, kuria Minister Chirchir akorwo akiuga arari umwe wa agendi aria marakinya guku bururi-ini, na ni areyoneire maundu ria marathire mitambo imwe kiamba gukwama, ona mirigo irarema kwamba kurutika ndege-ini tondu generator iria cie kiharo-ini kiu itinaruta wira. Gikiranira ati maundu maya ni mamwe ma maundu maria mekorwo magikirirwo, na ni akiuga ni eguthie na mbere na kwaraniria na urugamiriri wa Kenya Power maundu umwe na mainjinia matiganite niguo gutigirira ndeto ino ndigwicokera ringi. Tigana na icio ni ati thirikari ni yongereire kigina kia basari kuhitukira kigina kia ukuria wa icigo cia ubunge niguo gutigirira arutwo ni mateithika uria kwagiriire. Undu uyu kinyaneire thutha wa President Gitau William Ruto gwikira kirore watho wa uramati wa kigina kia CDF niguo gikorwo gigikurikana kiwatho. Watho uyu ni uteithiriirie kuongerera kigina giki kuma gicunji kia 35 hari 100 nginyagia gicunji kia 40 hari 100 kia bajeti ya bururi, undu uria guteithiriria arutwo aingi aria moimite micii itari na uhoti guthoma matekuthinika ni undu wa marihi ma cukuru ni mobithi. Nyongerera ya mbeca ici no iguteithiriria uheani wa irio mathukuru-ini ma muingi na makiria ma muthingi makiria icigo-ini iria igumagirwo ni ng'aragu na njira nene na gucungirira ciana guthie thukuru.
To work with members of parliament in every constituency to tackle two pressing matters. The matters of managing our environment because of the effects of climate change. We have to be deliberate in making sure that we engage a whole of society approach, in making sure that we intervene in various spaces that will help us manage environmental degradation, management of our water towers, management of our wetlands, and mobilizing the whole of society to intervene in that space that all of us now agree poses an existential threat, not just to Kenya, but to humanity. And the second item being attending to the very urgent and pressing matter of our youth, the youth bulge, and making sure that we provide opportunities for young people to engage in meaningful, deliberate opportunities to work. The ICT hubs that will come as a result of this intervention.
Kogena kuo atongoria ateteria ihoto cia umundu hamwe na muingi kuma kaunti-ini ya Naikuru ni moigite kuri na wongerereku wa haro cia kimucii kaunti-ini iyo, na iri ta njira ya gwetha kihonia gia gutura kiria gikunina thina uyu uria utwikite ugwati munene. Amwe andu aingi ni magite na mathina ma kimeciria, amwe ao nginyagia gwicungirira kuruta muoyo. Riu anyiti itemi moigite ni kurabatara kugathikwo mitaratara mikinyaniru ya kuhitana na thina uyu.
Haro cia kĩmĩciĩ ihutagia gĩkĩro kĩnene kĩa atumia, aingĩ ao mekora makĩrwara mĩrimũ ĩtiganĩte na mathĩna ma kĩmeciria na amwe kuma mĩciĩ-inĩ yao, ũndũ ũrĩa ũcũngagĩrĩria njatũkano cia mĩciĩ na gĩkĩro kĩnene. Anyiti itemi maugĩte haro ici nĩ iracũngĩrĩria mathĩna ma kĩmeciria kuongerereka na njĩra nene, amwe andũ matihotaga kwĩyaria nĩguo mamũkĩre ũteithio rĩrĩa ũrabatarania, makĩria athuri magĩkora makĩingĩrĩra ũnyui wa njohi ũtarĩ kĩharĩro, ũndũ ũrĩa ũmaharaganagĩria mĩtũrĩre yao.
Kuna mali unakuta ni FGM, yani mimba za mapema, but the most prevalent imekuwa sexual gender based violence ama defilement, zimekuwa ni cases mingi, ndio zote zinakithiri. Hata hapa na kuruwe ziko juu sana, ukienda mahali kama Subukia, ukienda mahali kwingine zimekuwa juu sana. Mũrũgamĩrĩri
wa Hope in Life Cosmas Mutua augĩte thengia wa matho matiganĩte kũgathĩkwo nĩguo gwetha kĩhonia gĩa thĩna ũyũ, bũrũri ndũrĩ ũrona kĩhonia gĩa thĩna ũyũ.
Naona visa vya dhuluma za wanawake na wasichana zimekithiri. GBV mingi inaendelea sababu ya reporting iko chini sana. Mtu anadhulumiwa na ripoti na ujule perpetrator ataendelea kufanya hilo tena na tena. Pia katika mambo ya sexual gender based violence, unakuta kwamba wasichana wengi wanapata ujauzito na wako tayari kudisclose ule aliwafanyia ile jambo.
Nimeranĩire kwarĩrĩria maũndũ maya na gũthomithia andũ arĩa mahutĩtio nĩ thĩna ũyũ kothi itiganĩte na kũmahe kĩgĩna kĩrĩa gĩkũmateithĩrĩria kwambĩrĩria maũndũ ma kũmateithĩrĩria kwĩyaka kĩmũtũrĩre.
Kama wasasi tuhakikishe kwamba watoto wetu tunawalinda na tuhakikishe kwamba nawe kama wewe ni mwanaume, hata ijapokuwa unaweza kuona msichana ni mkubwa, lakini lazima uhakikishe kwamba hata kama unataka urafiki, uhakikishe kwamba ni mtu mzima. Pengine unaweza kuomba kitambulisho chake ndio uweze kujua ni mtu mzima.
Mĩario yake nĩ nyitĩtwo mbaru nĩ Faith Makena wa Hope Worldwide Kenya, ũrĩa augĩte haro ici nĩ icũngĩrĩirie andũ aingĩ kwĩruta muoyo, matihotaga gwĩtiria mathĩna marĩa maragerera. Oho akĩũria kanitha kũingĩrĩra na gũtuĩka mũgambo wa arĩa mahutĩtio nĩguo gwetha kĩhonia.
Hope Worldwide Kenya is a faith-based organization, an NGO. One of the key things that we have been able to notice, women are able to report their cases compared to men, and this is because they are able to go to the facilities, the healthcare facilities, and they are aware of the processes of reporting the gender-based violence compared to women. And also during the community dialogue, we have also noticed that children are also affected.
Anyiti itemi aya mongereire atĩ kũhe andũ aingĩ mweke wa kwĩyaria maũndũ marĩa maragerera nĩ njĩra ĩmwe ya kũmanyihĩria meciria. Handũ-inĩ ha Kameme TV, rĩtwa rĩakwa nĩ Waithĩra wa Mwangi.
Na riboti ĩyo ya Waithĩra wa Mwangi nĩyo ĩratwĩkĩrĩra gaturumo Mohoro Gitau mĩaraho ya ũmũthĩ. Ngatho cia mwanya nĩ ũndũ wa gũkorwo ũnyitanĩire naniĩ na gũcagũra Kameme TV mũthĩgi wa rũrĩrĩ. Njĩtagwo Njoroge Mwakĩmani, mwathĩri na njĩra ya ciĩko wagaki wa Mũthoni, ũgĩe na mĩarahũko mĩega. Ngai akũrathime.
Kameme TV, mũthĩgi wa rũrĩrĩ.